The Andarax Galactic University was not just a school. It was the greatest place of learning in the entire galaxy. It sat deep inside a hollowed-out asteroid, spinning gently above a blue gas giant. The lecture hall inside it looked like a shining amphitheater made of crystal and silver metal. Creatures from hundreds of planets gathered here. They were the smartest minds from every race in the Galactic Federation. And today, something was very, very wrong. Professor Vinrel, a tall insectoid, being with 6 arms and glowing eyes, stood frozen at the center of the lecture stage. Around him sat 12 professors' bird-like beings, reptilian scholars, glass-bodied thinkers all silent. Above them floated a huge hologram of an equation shimmering in purple and gold. It was called the Yerrick model, a problem so hard that no one had solved it in over 1,000 years. Generations had tried and failed. But now, something impossible had happened. A single human student, wearing a creased Terran cadet uniform, stood at the bottom of the hall. Her name was Sujin Park. She looked calm. Her black hair was pulled back in a simple braid. A small digital slate rested in her hands. She had just walked to the front of the class and spoken 2 simple words. I solved it. The silence in the room was so deep it felt like space itself. Vinral twitched. His mandibles clicked nervously. Miss Park, he said slowly. You, claim to have solved the Yerrick model? Sujin nodded. Yes, Professor, I ran the simulations last night. Checked the variables again this morning. One of the feathered professors, Turo, squawked in disbelief. Impossible, that model. Spans dark matter, trade routes, and wormhole harmonics. Even our best AI failed. I didn't use AI, Sujin said, her voice even. I just treated it like an open matrix. You all assumed the wormhole lattice was closed. The panel of professors leaned forward. A student sitting high up in the balconies started whispering. A glass-bodied alien student began recording the moment. Another, a young insectoid, tapped his claw nervously. You're saying, said Churro? Slowly, the entire equation was flawed because we treated the system as stable. Yes, Sujin replied, but it isn't. Trade flows change. Wormholes shift slightly over time. I added feedback loops. Let the equation balance itself. Professor Vinrel's sighs pulsed. This ... would change everything. Right, centuries. Of economic models, galactic shipping, interstellar taxes. You'd break the system. Sujin looked up at him, her brown eyes sharp. Then maybe it's time the system breaks. One of the crystalline professors, Calyx, stood and waved a glowing hand. We must verify this, he shouted. Now holograms lit up. Equations ran, graphs twisted in the air. In just minutes, Sujin's math began to replace the old models. Fuel savings confirmed. Efficiency gains confirmed. Wormhole drift predictions confirmed. The professor stared, Churro's feathers trembled. This could shift trade power away from the core worlds. Professor Vinrel looked sick. Entire cartels will lose control. Another professor hissed, You must not share this, human. It will cause panic. Erden didn't. Blink, you invited humans here to learn. You didn't expect us to teach, did you? There was a deep growl from the upper chamber. An elder Scythian, part of the university's board, rose slowly. His thin wings shook with fear. This must be kept quiet. The Federation's economy depends on the current model, in your economy. Is a lie, Sujin said. The room broke into chaos. Alien students gasped. A few stood. One by one, they began pulling up her data. It spread across the galactic network in seconds. The equation that no one could solve had just been cracked by a human. By a Deathworlder. A voice echoed from the back. Is it true? A young alien student, eyes wide, stared at her. You're from Earth? Yes, Sujin replied. But Earth is ... dangerous. Exactly, she said. That's why we see patterns where others see noise. We grew up surrounded by chaos. You're saying this isn't a fluke? Asked Calyx again. I even compared it with 300 years of wormhole traffic records. Everything fits. Professor Vinrel's mandibles clacked. You'll ruin everything. Sujin stared at him. I'm not the one who built your empire on broken numbers. The older professors looked angry now, desperate. "You dare come into our hall," hissed one, "and throw away centuries of knowledge?" "No," Sujin said. "I just showed you the truth." Another murmur swept the hall. This time it was not fear. It was awe. Dozens of students, from species long ignored by the academic elite, began to stand. Their eyes shone with something new: hope. The Federation had always looked down on humans. They were useful as soldiers, miners, explorers, but not thinkers, not scholars. That belief shattered now. Vinrel looked around. This cannot leave this hall. "It already has," said Sujin, nodding toward the glowing feeds. "Your equation is public now." The Scythian elder slumped into his seat. "Then the cartels will fall. The trade codes will collapse." Sujin nodded slowly. "Good." "You do not understand," said Vinral. "There will be war, and maybe the Federation needs a war to wake up." The air around her buzzed. With silence, a moment later, it broke. A glass-bodied student clapped once, then twice, then others joined. Applause, quiet at first, then growing louder, rang out across the hall. Sujin stood tall, not smiling, but steady. She turned and walked back up the stairs, past rows of stunned professors, past students who stared at her as if she had just become something more than human. In the shadows of the stage, one of the elders whispered to Vinral, "What do we do now?" Vinral didn't answer for a long time. His antennas drooped. Finally he said, "Now we begin to fear them." And somewhere deep inside the university's archive systems, the old models began to rewrite themselves, line by line with Terran math. The day the Federation shifted, Sujin Park stood still, her eyes staring at the starry sky outside the grand university dome. The data from her model had already spread to 100 systems. By now, the Federation's biggest corporations, trade guilds, and even military leaders had seen it. She had just broken a 1,000-year-old equation and shattered a 1,000-year-old balance of power inside the council hall. Panic was growing. Alien leaders from powerful core worlds shouted across the room. Reptilian advisors hissed warnings. Feathered ministers flapped their wings in fear. The Yarick model was no longer a theory. It had become a weapon, one that a human had fired without even lifting her hand. "Bring her in," said a voice, cold and high. It came from the head of the Trade Council, a silvery-skinned being named High Director Telmar. His species, the Varans, had ruled the center of Federation economics for centuries. The human must answer for this chaos. Moments later, Sujin walked into the chamber. She wore the same worn cadet uniform, her hair still tied back. Her face was calm, but her eyes were sharp. "Cadet Park," Telmar said, leaning forward. "Before the Galactic Council." "Do you understand what you have done?" "Yes," Sujin said. "I showed the truth." "Is the truth," Telmar snapped, "has a cost?" Sujin glanced around the room. "Only if you fear it." An alien ambassador from a small farming world spoke up. "My people used her model. We cut shipping waste by 40% in 2 days. Fuel saved, time saved. Her math works." Taller delegate hissed. "Yes, and our fleets lost control of 2 major routes because of it." "That's not my fault," Sujin said. "That's yours for building your empire on bad numbers." Professor Vinral, now wearing ceremonial robes, stepped forward. "This is no longer a student matter. This is political sabotage." Sujin didn't blink. He wanted students to learn from the best, but none of you thought humans were the best. Another professor, Kalex, raised a transparent hand. "This information is too dangerous. We must erase it." Sujin's voice was steady. "You can't. It's already everywhere." Silence fell. She was right. Her model had gone viral. From fringe worlds to hidden colonies, people had downloaded her data. Independent systems had already updated their trade codes. The Federation's grip was slipping. One council member stood, her eyes glowing with fear. "If this continues, the trade cartels will collapse. The economy will fail." Sujin said quietly, "It will change. That's different." Suin, behind her, whispered, "She's dangerous." Someone else muttered, "She's a revolution." A young alien student rushed into the hall. His scales were pale green, his voice shaking. The Terran system. They adopted her model. 3 guilds shut down overnight, but he looked up. People are celebrating. Prices dropped. Food arrived on time. For the first time in a decade, the room stirred. Delegates looked at each other, unsure. High Director Telmar narrowed his eyes. What are you, human, a hero, or a destroyer? Sujin thought for a moment. Then she said neither. I'm just a student who asked the right question, Telmar hissed. Then you leave us no choice. Suddenly, the chamber lights dimmed. Security drones floated down from the ceiling. Red lights flashed. You were under investigation for Federation destabilization, a mechanical voice said. Sujin didn't flinch, but before the drones could grab her, a wave of students burst into the chamber. They were not armed. They carried data pads and glowing equations. Alien students, reptilian, feathered, insectoid. Crystalline all walked in together. We support her, a young avian said. She gave us knowledge that helped our homes. She showed us a better way, said a crystalline student. You can't arrest truth, said a tall mammalian cadet. The drones hovered, confused. Telmor stood. This is mutiny. No, said a voice from the back. It was Envoy Dehain Kim, the human representative. He stepped into the light. This is the future? Telmar turned to him. You'll regret this, Terran. Kim smiled. We've survived worse. We come from a planet where the air can kill you, the oceans drown cities, and creatures eat you in your sleep. And yet we thrived. You think we fear your politics? The students cheered. Sujin stepped back beside Kim. Are we done here? She asked. Telmor's voice was tight. Leave this place. You are no longer welcome. Kim nodded. Then we build our own academy, one that shares truth, not hides it. The human and the students walked out. Behind them, the council erupted in angry shouts. But it was already too late. Across the galaxy, changes had begun. Ships rerouted using the new equations. Black market traders vanished. Guilds collapsed. New trade networks rose, guided by Sujins. Model. Tiny planets, once ignored, suddenly had power. The Federation's control slipped away quietly, steadily. Back on Earth's lunar embassy, Sujin sat on a bench and looked at the stars. Do you regret it? Kim asked, sitting beside her. No, she said. Do they? They will. Do. Nodded. Good. Weeks later, a memorial was unveiled in the rebuilt Andarax University. It's not a statue, but a large screen showing the Yarick model solved and glowing. Beneath it, in every galactic language, was a single phrase. Truth does not ask for permission. In the years that followed, Sujin Park would become a symbol. Not of war, not of rebellion, but of thinking differently. A reminder that knowledge, when shared freely, could tear down even the oldest walls. And sometimes, the quiet student no one expected becomes the storm.